Most men will never understand why the quietest person in the room is always the most dangerous one. They think power is loud. They think dominance means talking more, arguing harder, proving yourself in every conversation like your identity depends on it. But Machiavelli understood something that took kings centuries to learn. The man who controls his tongue controls the room, controls the outcome, and ultimately controls the people around him without them ever realizing it happened. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is a loaded weapon with the safety off. While other men are busy explaining themselves, defending themselves, performing for approval, you are watching, calculating, and building leverage they cannot see and cannot touch. Every word you withhold is a move they cannot predict. Every time you refuse to react, you force them into uncertainty. And uncertainty is where your power lives. This is not about being passive. This is not about shyness. This is about becoming the kind of man whose stillness makes other men nervous, whose quiet makes them question themselves before you've said a single word. Welcome to Machiavellian Mode. What you're about to learn will change how you carry yourself forever. Number 1. The weapon they never see coming. Let me tell you something that most men will go their entire lives without understanding. Words are cheap. Every man has them. Every man uses them to impress, to defend, to fill the silence, because the silence makes them uncomfortable. But you are not every man. The moment you step into a room and choose stillness over noise, you have already separated yourself from 90% of the competition without lifting a single finger. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man does not say everything he thinks, but he always thinks everything he says. Read that again. Let it settle into your bones. Because what that means is that every time you open your mouth without intention, without strategy, without precision, you are handing your enemy a map to your mind. You are showing them your fears, your insecurities, your hunger for validation. And a man who can be read is a man who can be manipulated. But silence, cold, deliberate, unshakable silence, that is a weapon they never see coming, because it carries no shape, no form, no target they can strike back at. You cannot argue with a man who says nothing. You cannot rattle a man who refuses to react. You cannot find the weakness in a man who gives you nothing to work with. This is the first principle of Machiavellian power. Become unreadable, and you become untouchable. Now tell me, are you ready to walk that path? Drop the word unreadable in the comments right now if you are built for this. Number 2. Why weak men can't shut up. Here is the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most men talk because they are afraid. Not afraid of you specifically, afraid of what the silence means about them. Afraid that if they stop filling the air with words, people will see the emptiness underneath. Afraid that if they don't constantly announce their opinions, their achievements, their frustrations, they will simply cease to matter. This is the psychology of the insecure man, and once you understand it, you will see it everywhere. You will see it in the man who cannot sit through a dinner without dominating every conversation. You will see it in the man who argues on the internet at 2 in the morning defending positions nobody asked him about. You will see it in the man who, the moment he feels threatened, immediately starts talking faster, louder, longer, as if volume is a substitute for actual power. It is not. It never was. Machiavelli understood that a man who cannot control his own mouth cannot control anything else in his life, not his relationships, not his enemies, not his own destiny. The compulsive need to speak is a signal. It tells everyone around you that you need their attention to feel real. It tells them that their reaction is your oxygen, and the moment someone knows you need something from them, they have power over you. Real power, Machiavellian power, requires you to cut that dependency completely. You must reach the point where their attention means nothing to you, where their approval is irrelevant, where their silence or their noise does not move you in either direction. When you achieve that state, something remarkable happens. People begin to feel it. They cannot explain it, but they sense that you operate on a different frequency, that you are not playing the same game they are playing. And that feeling, that unspoken recognition of your difference, is worth more than any argument you could ever win with words. Weak men talk to feel powerful. Powerful men stay silent to remain powerful. Know the difference. Live the difference. Number 3. The Machiavellian principle of controlled absence. There is a principle that Machiavelli embedded deep within his teachings that most people completely overlook because they are too focused on the obvious lessons about power and strategy. That principle is controlled absence, the deliberate, calculated decision to remove your presence, your words, your reactions, and your energy from situations where most men would instinctively engage. And this is where the real psychological edge begins. Understand this: your presence is a resource. Your attention is a resource. Your words are a resource. And like every resource in existence, their value is directly determined by their scarcity. The man who is always available, always responding, always present, always vocal, he becomes background noise. Predictable, ignorable. People stop seeing him because he is always there, always giving, always reacting, always performing. But the man who controls when he appears, when he speaks, when he engages, that man commands a completely different level of attention when he does decide to show up. When he finally speaks, people lean in. When he finally responds, people pay attention. When he finally moves, people notice, because his absence has trained them to value his presence. This is not a social trick. This is fundamental human psychology that Machiavelli recognized centuries ago, and that the most powerful men in history have practiced without ever giving it a name. Julius Caesar used it. Napoleon used it. The great chess players of geopolitics have always understood that the move you don't make can be more powerful than the move you do make. Controlled absence is the art of making your silence speak louder than your words ever could. It is the discipline of not explaining yourself when people question you. It is the strength of not defending yourself when people provoke you. It is the cold intelligence of walking away from conversations that are designed to drain your energy and diminish your focus. Every time you choose controlled absence over reactive engagement, you are making a deposit into your power account, an account that compounds silently, invisibly, and devastatingly over time. The people around you will begin to feel a shift they cannot articulate. They will start to wonder what you are thinking. They will start to wonder what you know. They will start to fill your silence with their own fears, their own projections, their own insecurities, and that is exactly where you want them. Confused, uncertain, off balance, while you remain grounded, strategic, and completely in control. This is the Machiavellian principle of controlled absence. Master it, and you will never need to raise your voice again. Drop controlled in the comments if this is already changing the way you think. Number 4. How silence rewires their psychology. Now we go deeper, because everything we have talked about so far has been about you, your discipline, your strategy, your controlled absence, your power. But now I want to talk about what your silence does to them. Because this is where Machiavellian psychology becomes genuinely dangerous. And this is where most men who study power stop short, because they are not ready to accept how ruthlessly effective this principle truly is. When you go silent on someone, not out of weakness, not out of confusion, but out of pure deliberate strategy, you do not simply create a pause in the conversation. You detonate a psychological bomb inside their mind that they have absolutely no defense against. Here is why. The human brain is a pattern recognition machine. It is wired, at the deepest biological level, to seek resolution, to seek closure, to seek meaning in every interaction. When you speak, When you react, when you engage, you give the brain what it wants. You give it data. You give it something to process, something to respond to, something to file away and move on from. But when you go silent, when you refuse to react, refuse to explain, refuse to give them the response they were expecting, you break the pattern. And a broken pattern does not simply disappear. It festers. It grows. It consumes. The other person's mind will not let it go, because unresolved patterns feel like threats to the subconscious, and the subconscious does not rest until the threat is neutralized. So what happens? They start talking more to fill the void you created. They start second-guessing what they said, what they did, whether they misread the situation. They start projecting their own insecurities into your silence, interpreting your stillness through the lens of their own fears. Did I offend him? Does he know something I don't? Is he planning something? Why isn't he reacting? That internal chaos, that spiral of questions with no answers, is entirely your creation. You built it with nothing but restraint. You weaponized your own stillness and turned it into a psychological vice that tightens every time they reach for an explanation you refuse to give. Machiavelli wrote that men are moved more by fear of loss than by hope of gain. Your silence triggers that fear on an instinctive level because it signals that you are operating beyond their ability to read you, beyond their ability to predict you, beyond their ability to influence you. And a man they cannot influence is a man they cannot control. And a man they cannot control is a man they instinctively respect, even if that respect is wrapped in discomfort. Even if that respect feels more like unease than admiration. Because real power has never been about making people comfortable around you. Real power is about making people aware, deeply, viscerally, unavoidably aware, that you exist on a level they have not yet reached. Your silence does not just communicate that message. It proves it in real time, without a single word, without a single argument, without a single performance. It is the coldest, cleanest, most elegant form of dominance that exists. And now that you understand what your silence does to their psychology, you will never waste it carelessly again. Drop psychological edge in the comments right now if you feel this truth in your core. Number 5. The cold architecture of power. Everything we have covered so far has been laying the foundation, the weapon, the weakness of other men, the principle of controlled absence, the psychological rewiring that your silence triggers in the minds around you. But now I want to build the full structure. Now I want to show you the cold architecture of power. Because power is not an accident. Power is not something that falls on certain men by luck or by birth. Power is a construction. It is a deliberate, calculated, relentlessly maintained structure that the most formidable men in history built brick by brick, decision by decision, silence by silence. And if you want to become untouchable, not just respected, not just feared, but genuinely untouchable, then you need to understand how this architecture is assembled and why silence is not just one component of it, but the very spine that holds the entire structure upright. The first layer of this architecture is emotional impenetrability. This means that your internal world, your doubts, your desires, your frustrations, your ambitions, must become invisible to the outside world. Most men leak their emotions constantly without realizing it. They leak through their facial expressions, through the speed of their responses, through the topics they avoid, through the moments they laugh too quickly or go quiet too suddenly. Every emotional leak is a crack in the architecture. Every crack is an entry point for someone who wants to find your weakness and use it against you. Machiavelli was ruthlessly clear on this point. The prince who cannot conceal his thoughts will always be at the mercy of those who can. Emotional impenetrability is not coldness for the sake of coldness. It is the disciplined practice of deciding what the world gets to see and what remains yours alone. The second layer is strategic unpredictability. Predictable men are manageable men. When people can anticipate your reactions, your moods, your decisions, they can plan around you, manipulate around you, and ultimately neutralize your influence without you even realizing it is happening. But the man who operates with strategic unpredictability, who sometimes engages and sometimes withdraws, who sometimes speaks with precision and sometimes says absolutely nothing, that man cannot be mapped. He cannot be outmaneuvered, because his next move is genuinely unknown, even to those who study him closely. Your silence is the most powerful tool of unpredictability you possess, because it carries no information. It gives them nothing to analyze, nothing to counter, nothing to prepare for. The third layer is the projection of inevitability. This is the most advanced layer and the most misunderstood. The most powerful men in history did not just act powerful, they made power feel inevitable around them. They moved through the world in a way that made people feel that opposing them was not just difficult, but fundamentally pointless. This is achieved not through aggression, not through dominance displays, not through loud demonstrations of strength, but through a sustained, unbroken pattern of composure, strategic restraint, and deliberate action that compounds over time into an aura that precedes you into every room you enter. When you have practiced emotional impenetrability long enough, people stop trying to read you. When you have practiced strategic unpredictability long enough, people stop trying to anticipate you. And when those two things combine, when you become both unreadable and unpredictable, the projection of inevitability emerges naturally, organically, undeniably. People begin to sense that you are playing a longer game than they are, that your vision extends beyond the current conversation, beyond the current conflict, beyond the current moment. And that sense, that quiet, unsettling recognition that you are operating on a timeline and a level of strategy they cannot access, is the coldest, most commanding form of power that one man can project onto another. This is the architecture Machiavelli built his entire philosophy around. Not the brutality, not the manipulation for its own sake, but the construction of a self so disciplined, so composed, so strategically silent, that the world has no choice but to move around you rather than through you. Build this architecture every single day, one silent decision at a time, one withheld reaction at a time, one controlled absence at a time, until the structure is so solid that nothing, no provocation, no betrayal, no chaos, can shake its foundation. Number 6. What your silence forces them to do. We have talked about the architecture. We have talked about the psychology. We have talked about the principles. Now I want to get surgical, because understanding silence as a concept is one thing, but understanding exactly what your silence forces other people to do in real time, in real situations, in real interactions, is where this knowledge becomes a living, breathing weapon that you can deploy with precision every single day of your life. So let us break this down with the kind of cold clarity that Machiavelli himself would respect. When you go silent on someone who was expecting a reaction, the very first thing that happens is they experience a spike of cognitive dissonance. They had a script in their mind. They knew what they were going to say. They knew what you were going to say. They had the entire exchange mapped out, and your silence just erased the map. Now they are standing in unfamiliar territory, with no directions and no landmarks, and the human mind absolutely despises that feeling. It immediately begins generating responses to fill the void. And here is the critical part. Those responses are generated from their own internal fears, not from any actual information you have given them. You have essentially handed them a blank canvas, and their subconscious has painted it with everything they are most afraid of. That is not a side effect of your silence. That is the intended result. The second thing your silence forces them to do is overextend. Watch this play out in any confrontation, any negotiation, any power struggle you have ever witnessed. The person who feels the uncertainty first is always the person who starts talking more. They start explaining themselves when nobody asked for an explanation. They start justifying their position when nobody challenged it. They start adding qualifications and softening their stance and reaching for common ground. Not because the situation demanded it, but because your silence created a vacuum and their discomfort pulled them forward into it. And every step they take forward into that vacuum is a step they are taking on your terms, in your direction, toward a position that serves your agenda far more than it serves theirs. This is Machiavellian negotiation at its purest. You have said nothing. You have conceded nothing. You have revealed nothing. And yet they are already moving in the direction you need them to move, driven entirely by the psychological pressure of your stillness. The third thing your silence forces them to do is reveal themselves. This is perhaps the most tactically valuable consequence of all. When people are uncomfortable, when they are uncertain, when they are trying desperately to read a situation they cannot read, they talk. And when people talk from a place of anxiety rather than confidence, they say things they would never say if they felt secure. They expose their priorities. They expose their fears. They expose their loyalties and their betrayals and their hidden agendas in ways that hours of direct questioning could never extract. Your silence is the most effective interrogation technique ever devised, because it does not feel like an interrogation. It feels like a conversation that is going wrong, and people in conversations that are going wrong always try to fix it by giving more words, more information, more of themselves, until they have given you everything you needed to know and more than they ever intended to share. The fourth thing your silence forces them to do is respect you against their own will. This is the part that most people find hardest to believe until they experience it firsthand. Nobody tells you to respect the silent man. Nobody makes an argument for it. It happens on a level beneath conscious thought, because silence signals something ancient and primal to the human brain. It signals self-sufficiency. It signals that this man does not need your validation, does not need your reaction, does not need anything from this interaction to feel complete and secure in himself. And self-sufficiency, at the deepest level of human social psychology, reads as strength. It reads as danger. It reads as someone who operates from a surplus of internal power rather than a deficit of external approval. And we are biologically wired to respect that signal, whether we want to or not. The fifth and final thing your silence forces them to do is remember you. Long after the loud men have blurred together in people's memories, the silent man remains distinct, sharp, and vivid. Because silence creates mystery, and mystery creates obsession, and obsession creates influence that outlasts any single interaction by weeks, months, and sometimes years. They will replay your silence in their minds. They will wonder what it meant. They will assign it significance that grows over time rather than fading. And that lingering presence, that quiet, persistent influence that lives in their thoughts long after you have left the room, is the ultimate expression of Machiavellian power. You do not need to be the loudest voice in the room. You need to be the one they cannot stop thinking about. Drop silent dominance in the comments right now if you understand exactly what we are building here. Number 7. The man who speaks last wins. There is an old principle buried inside every great tradition of power, strategy, and warfare that modern men have forgotten in an age of instant reactions, instant responses, and instant gratification. That principle is devastatingly simple and almost universally ignored. The man who speaks last wins. Not the man who speaks first. Not the man who speaks loudest. Not the man who speaks most eloquently or most aggressively or most convincingly in the heat of the moment. The man who speaks last. And I want you to sit with that for a moment before we go further, because if you truly internalize this single principle and begin applying it with consistency and discipline, it will fundamentally alter every dynamic you operate within, every conversation, every negotiation, every confrontation, every relationship, every room you walk into for the rest of your life. Here is why this principle is so devastatingly effective. When a conflict or a high-stakes conversation begins, there is always an enormous amount of emotional energy in the room. Adrenaline, ego, fear, ambition, pride, all of it is swirling and charged and looking for somewhere to discharge. And the men who speak first are almost always the men who are most controlled by that emotional energy rather than in control of it. They react, they fire back, they match the energy of the room because their nervous system is driving the bus rather than their intellect. And in doing so, they spend themselves. They burn through their emotional and strategic resources in the opening moments of a confrontation, revealing their position, revealing their emotional state, revealing their vulnerabilities, all before the situation has had time to fully develop and show them what is actually at stake. That the man who holds back, the man who lets the noise happen around him while he observes, calculates, and waits, that man enters the conversation at the moment of maximum advantage. He has seen how others have played their hand. He has watched where the emotional energy has gone. He has identified the weaknesses in every position that has been staked out before him. And when he finally speaks, he does not speak into chaos, he speaks into clarity. His words land with a weight and a precision that the earlier speakers simply cannot match, because his words are not reactions. They are conclusions. They are the final move in a sequence that everyone else played out in front of him while he watched in patient, deliberate silence. Machiavelli understood this with absolute clarity. He wrote that the one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise the one who sets the pace of things prospers. The man who speaks last sets the pace. He does not chase the conversation, he allows the conversation to exhaust itself and then steps in to define its outcome. This is not passivity. Understand that clearly. Waiting is not weakness. Strategic patience is one of the most aggressive moves available to a man who truly understands power. Because while everyone else is reacting, you are positioning. While everyone else is spending, you are saving. While everyone else is showing their cards, you are memorizing every hand at the table. And when the moment finally comes, when the room has said everything it has to say, and the silence opens up like a door, you walk through it with everything you have observed, everything you have calculated, and everything you have held back. And you deliver the only words that matter. The words that close the conversation. The words that define the outcome. The words that people remember long after everything else that was said has faded into noise. This is why powerful men across history have been known for saying less, not more. Not because they had less to say, but because they understood that the timing of words is as important as the words themselves, and that the most powerful timing of all is the moment when everyone else has already shown their weakness and the room is ready to receive a conclusion. Train yourself to be the last voice. Train yourself to sit in the discomfort of the pause, to resist the pull of the reactive mind, to let the noise die down before you add your signal. Because in a world full of men who cannot stop talking, the man who chooses when to speak is the man who controls what gets heard, what gets remembered, and ultimately what gets done. Speak last. Win always. Number 8. Silence as dominance. The advanced layer. Everything we have built up to this point has been preparation for what I am about to tell you now. Because we have covered the fundamentals, we have covered the psychology, we have covered the strategy, but now we are going into the advanced layer. The layer that separates the men who understand silence as a tactic from the men who have internalized silence as an identity. And that distinction is everything. A tactic is something you pick up and put down. A tactic is something you deploy in specific situations when you remember to use it. A tactic is external. It lives outside of you. And because it lives outside of you, it is fragile. It fails under pressure. It disappears when your emotions run high. It collapses the moment someone hits a nerve you did not know you had. But an identity is something different entirely. An identity is something that runs so deep inside you that it does not require conscious activation. It does not require you to remember to use it. It does not fail under pressure, because it is not separate from you. It is you. And the man who has made silence his identity does not practice silence. He radiates it. He carries it into every room, every interaction, every moment of his life, as naturally and as effortlessly as he carries his own name. This is the advanced layer, the transformation of silence from a tool you use into a quality you embody. And reaching this layer requires you to understand something that most men in the self-improvement space will never tell you, because it is deeply uncomfortable to confront. The reason most men cannot sustain silence, the reason they pick it up and put it down, the reason they use it for a week and then abandon it the moment life gets hard, is because deep down, they are still addicted to external validation. They are still, at some fundamental level, measuring their worth through the reactions of other people. Through the approval they receive, the fear they inspire, the attention they command. And as long as that addiction is running in the background, silence will always feel like deprivation rather than power. It will always feel like you are withholding something you desperately want to give, rather than deliberately choosing to operate on a higher frequency. The advanced layer requires you to do the internal work of dismantling that addiction completely. Not managing it, not suppressing it, dismantling it. You must reach the point, through discipline, through repeated practice, through the kind of ruthless self-examination that most men actively avoid, where the opinion of the room genuinely does not move you, where the silence in a conversation does not create anxiety in you, but creates clarity, where the absence of reaction from others does not make you question yourself, but confirms to you that you are operating exactly as you intended. When you reach that point, something extraordinary happens to the way you carry yourself. Your posture changes. Your eye contact changes. The pace at which you move and speak changes. There is a stillness that settles into your body that people can feel before you have said or done anything at all. This is what the ancient Stoics called apatheia. Not apathy in the modern sense, not indifference or laziness, but the complete absence of being controlled by external circumstances. The state of a man who has so thoroughly mastered his internal world that the external world loses its power to destabilize him. Machiavelli saw the same quality in the princes he admired most, not the ones who were simply clever or simply ruthless, but the ones who had an unshakable internal core that made them immune to the psychological warfare that destroyed lesser men around them. That unshakable core is what you are building every time you choose silence over reaction, every time you choose observation over performance, every time you choose strategic patience over the cheap satisfaction of being heard in the moment. You are not just building a habit, you are building a fortress inside yourself, one that no provocation, no manipulation, no betrayal can breach. And when that fortress is complete, when it is solid and deep and genuinely yours, your silence will not just be threatening, it will be absolute. Drop Silent Fortress in the comments if you are committed to building this from the inside out. Number 9, the untouchable identity. We are almost at the end, and I want you to feel the weight of everything we have built together across this script, because what I am about to describe is not just the next section, it is the destination. Everything we have covered, the weapon of silence, the weakness of reactive men, controlled absence, the psychological rewiring, the cold architecture, the forces your silence unleashes, the discipline of speaking last, the advanced layer of silence as identity, all of it has been leading here, to this. The untouchable identity. And I need you to understand from the very beginning of this section that untouchable does not mean invincible in the physical sense. It does not mean nothing can ever go wrong in your life. It does not mean you will never face betrayal, never face loss, never face moments where the world hits you harder than you expected. What untouchable means in the Machiavellian sense, in the deepest psychological sense, is that nothing external can reach the core of who you are and destabilize it. Nothing can make you react from a place of weakness. Nothing can manipulate you through your emotions, your ego, your need for approval, your fear of being misunderstood. You become untouchable, not because life stops throwing things at you, but because you have built an internal identity so solid, so grounded, so deeply rooted in self-mastery and strategic awareness that every external force simply loses its grip on you. It slides off. It cannot find purchase. It cannot find the cracks, because the cracks have been sealed by years of deliberate, disciplined, silent self-construction. Now here is what most men get wrong when they pursue power and dominance. They pursue it outwardly. They pursue it through status symbols, through aggressive displays, through trying to make other people fear or respect them through performance. And the fundamental problem with that approach is that it is entirely dependent on the external world cooperating with your narrative. The moment the external world stops cooperating, the moment the status disappears, the moment the performance is not received the way you intended, the moment someone refuses to give you the fear or the respect you were performing for, the entire identity collapses. Because it was never real. It was a costume, not a character. But the untouchable identity is built from the inside out. It begins with the decision, a quiet, private, unannounced decision that you make alone, that you are no longer available to be destabilized by things outside your control, that your sense of self does not require the agreement of anyone in any room, that your power does not depend on being recognized, validated, or feared by others to be real. It is real because you have built it, brick by brick, through every silent moment, every withheld reaction, every strategic withdrawal, every time you chose composure over chaos, and long-term positioning over short-term emotional satisfaction. Machiavelli's deepest teaching was never really about how to manipulate others. At its core, it was always about how to master yourself so completely that the need to manipulate others becomes almost irrelevant, because a man who is truly untouchable does not need to chase power. Power gravitates toward him naturally, inevitably, like water finding its level, because the world can sense the difference between a man performing strength and a man who simply is strong. People feel it in how you hold eye contact without aggression. They feel it in how you receive bad news without flinching. They feel it in how you walk away from situations that most men would feel compelled to fight, knowing that your silence in that moment is not retreat. It is the highest form of strategic dominance available to you. This is the untouchable identity, not a mask, not a performance, not a set of tactics you deploy on Monday and forget by Friday, a complete, permanent, unshakable way of existing in the world that makes every room you enter quieter, every person you deal with more careful, and every opponent you face more uncertain. Build it. Protect it. Never compromise it for anyone. Number 10. The final decree. This is where everything ends and everything begins. Because a decree is not a suggestion. A decree is not a motivational quote you read and forget by tomorrow morning. A decree is a declaration, a cold, permanent, unbreakable declaration of the kind of man you have decided to become, and the standards you have decided to hold yourself to from this moment forward, regardless of circumstance, regardless of who is watching, regardless of what the world throws at you in return. So let this be yours. From this day forward, you do not speak to be heard. You speak to be remembered. From this day forward, you do not react to be understood. You remain silent to be feared. From this day forward, you do not perform strength for the approval of rooms that were never worthy of your energy in the first place. You carry your strength inward, quietly, devastatingly, like a blade that never needs to be drawn to remind everyone in the room that it exists. Machiavelli spent his entire life studying the anatomy of power, watching princes rise and fall, watching kingdoms built and destroyed, watching men of extraordinary potential collapse under the weight of their own unchecked emotions and unguarded tongues. And the single thread that ran through every man who endured, every man who built something lasting, every man who became genuinely untouchable was this: they mastered themselves before they attempted to master anything else. That is the final decree. Master yourself first. Master your silence. Master your reactions. Master the space between what you feel and what you show. Master the discipline of strategic patience in a world that rewards impulsive noise with fleeting attention and punishes quiet strength with temporary invisibility. Because that temporary invisibility is not a loss, it is the price of building something that lasts. The loud men will always get the room's attention first. Let them have it. Let them burn bright and fast and empty while you build slow and deep and permanent. Because the attention of the room is not the goal. The goal is the kind of influence that does not need a room, the kind that operates in the minds of people long after the room has emptied, long after the noise has faded, long after the loud men have exhausted themselves and disappeared. That is what silence builds. That is what Machiavellian discipline constructs over time. That is what you are now equipped to pursue with every tool, every principle, every psychological edge we have laid out across this entire script. You came here as a man seeking power. You leave here as a man who understands that the deepest power was never something to be sought outside yourself. It was always something to be excavated from within, refined through silence, and projected through the kind of presence that does not demand respect, but commands it absolutely and automatically. And understand this: the journey does not end when this video ends. The journey deepens the moment you close this screen and walk back into your life, carrying everything you now know. Every conversation you enter, every room you step into, every provocation that comes your way, every moment where the old version of you would have reacted, explained, defended, or performed. That is your battlefield now. That is where this philosophy gets forged from theory into identity, from knowledge into power, from intention into the kind of lived, breathing, unshakable dominance that no one can take from you because no one gave it to you. You built it yourself, in silence. This is Machiavellian mode. This is the standard. This is the path. And now it is yours to walk. Drop Machiavellian mode in the comments right now and let every man watching this know exactly where you stand and exactly what you are building. If this script changed something in you today, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because what we are building here is just getting started, and you do not want to miss a single step of what comes next.